Hi there, you're listening to Lee from the Plump DJs, and this is the Liverpool Connection Podcast.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Daz. This is my football and music episode where I bring somebody on who likes football and music. Whether they still like football, that's up to them, but obviously they still love music. What I love about these episodes is I get to bring on people that are part of my musical sound landscape. So I'm honoured to bring on this next guest. He's a DJ producer, was resident at Cafe Mambo for over a decade. He is now musical director at Hostel La Torre in Ibiza. I'm very happy to welcome Pete Gooding to the show. I cannot wait to get into all of this. And I didn't even know you were a Brummie, to be honest, Pete.
Yeah, I don't have much of an accent. I've not been there. I probably get there once a year, if that. But I kind of I've lived here on and off all my life. I lived in London for 10 years, so I kind of, I lost my accent, like.
my dad is actually from Rednall.
Okay.
Yeah, and he doesn't have much of a.
I kind of think I've heard the name.
My dad.
Yeah, Rednall. I'm not sure.
It's a part of Birmingham. It's actually where Ozzy Osbourne was born.
Okay, yeah, I'm not.
It's weird because like my dad and Ozzy just sound so different, and I'm like, and he's like, yeah, we went to the same school and everything, and I was like, you do not sound like you're a Brummie. Yeah, but he spent most of his time like in Liverpool and Kendal. So yeah,
right.
That's his side, and then my mum was born in Burnley. So, and then you've got me. So I had my mum Burnley accent. My dad has a bit of a cross between a little bit of Birmingham and then a little bit of like Liverpool, and then me. So yeah, we're a cross between. I know you as you just alluded to, like before we came on, you were a football fan. So, let's go back in Pete's little childhood, obviously Birmingham City for you. How did all that start? Was it your family who were City fans?
Yeah, I think my granddad, Frank, was a Birmingham fan. I'm sure he wanted to live to see them come back into the Premiership. I don't think that happened, unfortunately. I think my dad was a Birmingham fan, not in any serious way, I don't think. And I was born in a time, in the 70s where you supported a local team, not a glamorous team that was doing well. You supported a local team. You get foreigners that support Man United that have never been to England, or whichever team, So, yeah, Birmingham, there were two teams that were more sort of prominent. It was Villa and Birmingham. And I think I preferred the colour of the Birmingham kit. Blues. And my stepdad, John, when I was young, used to take me to see Birmingham. So I've got those sort of memories of, the smell of Bovril. And it was great. I enjoyed it. I always used to buy the Birmingham kits. I used to collect the football stickers like every kid did in that era. So, I never really enjoyed playing football, though. I don't know. Like I always thought I enjoyed playing rugby, but rugby bored me to watch. But football was fun to watch, and I never really enjoyed playing it that much. But yeah, that's kind of was the earliest memories, And I guess people like Trevor Francis and Archie Gemmell were playing at that time. That's when they were players. So it was quite, it was a while ago. It was sort of 40 plus years ago.
And did you go to the matches when you?
Yeah, we were at Andrews. Yeah, because I was brought up in Solihull, and so it was close.
Yeah, it's always nice, like when you start going with family. Because my granddad took me, 76 when I was 6. So I was a bit too young to really, understand what was going on. But it's funny that you say, the smell of Bovril. Well, for me, it was the smell of urine that was very intoxicating on the cop at the time, because everybody did the whole newspaper thing, which is, very bizarre. Well, these days,
I don't know what that is, to be honest.
Huh?
I don't know what that is. What is that?
You roll up a newspaper and piss through it.
Oh, what, and then throw it?
Yeah, well, that, and so you didn't have to go miss any of the match. Yeah, that's what.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people kind of did back then.
Oh my God! So, I mean,
I'd rather smell Bovril.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think probably something that put me off football. I remember my dad took me to see a West Ham. I think it was West Ham and Birmingham, and there was a lot of violence. And I was young, and I remember they were throwing darts into the Birmingham where we were, and I just, that was obviously very, very scary as a child. I remember my stepdad just rushing us out of there. And I guess around that time, I remember at school, like I wasn't that interested in fighting. I liked girls and music. That looked much more fun. And being in fights, I just like, what's the point? You get hurt, you smash your face up. I didn't see the allure. And it seemed that all the people that liked that were into football. So I very quickly distanced myself from, just didn't seem like my kind of thing or my kind of environment I was excited by. I know some people love that, but I just didn't, that wasn't my thing. So I kind of grew up, I was quite good at rugby. So I got more and more into that. And it was quite weird. I mean, I remember years ago, I used to live in Richmond and there was a big, I think we actually went to see an England game, a rugby game, which bored the hell out of us. We left halfway through. But you could go to a pub on the river, hundreds of people, no trouble. If that was football, would have been a riot. And I thought, well, this is better. This is like more fun,
Yeah, well, it was just crazy back then, I've seen dartsmen thrown, obviously coins, and when you throw a coin from a distance, it hurts. I've had a brick thrown at me by a Man United fan as soon as I got off the train as well. And I got a brick like in my face, and then I had to. I watched the game. I came home, and then my dad literally sat me down and was like, "Is this what you want?" I was like, "Well, not really. I don't want a brick in my face." But he's like, "Well, you're hanging out with the wrong crowd." Then he's like, "I know you love Liverpool, but it's basically who you hang out with." So he kind of straighten me up a bit, and then obviously I'm kind of, I've got my football part in me, but obviously the music part. But again, when you're a teenager, chasing girls all the time, you don't have time for a scrap.
No, there was quite a lot of fighting. I remember when I was growing up. I didn't go to it wasn't like a school in the Bronx, for example, but it was it wasn't a nice school. It was a bit, there was a lot of fighting and there'll be people waiting at the gates and people would be fighting. There's lots of fights in the area around there. I never got it. I thought, I just didn't understand at all why was that fun. I just didn't get it. So yeah, I just lumped football with that kind of environment, I think, at some point, and thought, yeah, that's not my thing. But I've enjoyed. I remember loving Euro 96. That was just a great moment. We watched every game, and that was amazing. I also remember, I have a memory of, I think I was with the owner of Mambo. Maybe it was about 2012, and it was a Euro, I think, or a World Cup. I don't know which ones, whatever it was at the time. But and I think it was Italy, Spain in the final, and I was in utter awe of how well the Spanish played. I mean, it was like beautiful to watch. It was mind-blowing. It was like they were just playing with Italy. It was the flair. You don't see that kind of visual flair in British football like you do foreign football. I don't know why. And then, Sunday night, our daughter wanted to watch the game because some of her friends were going to be there. And so I ended up watching that. And I think there was me, my friend Jack, were the only people who seemed to want England to win in the whole building. Because obviously I'm in Ibiza, right? So, but I enjoyed the game and it was a good game. I of course wanted England to win, and I thought they did pretty well. They just didn't seem to have the flair the other team had. But I thought they did definitely try hard and scored a great goal. But that's kind of, I see friends and it's life and death to them if England lose, and it's really depressing for them. And it's like, it really affects them. And I just don't I was bothered for 2 minutes, and then it's like, right, next. It's just so it's thankfully, otherwise I'd have been miserable all day Monday. But yeah,
that's the thing. As a teenager, if you'd asked me, Liverpool lose, I'm depressed until the next game. Right. I'd throw the telly out the window. But you grow older, and you're just like, I have kids, and the life and work and everything. That's football's on the back burner. I'm so passionate about it that I don't let it ruin, the rest of my week anymore. Because, all I need to do is look at me kids and they make me smile. So that's...
And I do remember for years sort of vaguely following Birmingham, and they just for anybody watching, the audio's sort of not working on my laptop, so I'm trying to balance a mobile phone while it's plugged into a hardwired device, so it said there's internet. Yeah, it's just, I just always remember thinking, I can see why people support these teams like Liverpool and Man United, because they win a lot. Birmingham seem to just lose a lot and go down. I think they pop back up once for a period of time. But I guess if you don't have the budgets, by being in the Premiership, you can't buy the players. It's a bit of a catch-22, I guess. I don't know much about it. I may be the person who knows the least about football that you'll ever talk to. But
well, it's crazy. Like, I was actually looking up the stats today, and Liverpool have won against Birmingham. We've won 59, but we've also lost 29 and drawn 28. And it's crazy because I think we got our worst loss in a league game against Birmingham when you beat us 9-1, and that was in 1954. And then we beat you lot 7-0 in 2006 in the FA Cup. I've forgotten what round it was.
They're like school games.
Oh yeah. I mean, you never heard of kind of those score lines anymore. But I used to love watching us play Birmingham, but like, I can't believe we've not played Birmingham. The last time we played was 2011, which is mad because, Birmingham were in the Premier League. We're in, Division 1 when it was Division, some people won't even know what Division 1 is. It's all about the Premier League now. But yeah, it's just crazy to think that you're in League 1 at the moment. And that's only the third time you've ever been in League 1. Which is kind of sad. So I hope you bounce back up, get back in the Championship, and we'll see. But
it's funny. I feel like you remember dates around football games, like I remember the years records were released and the label they're on and who made them and all that.
Well, it's the same thing. Well, it's kind of the same thing with me trainers as well, because I've collected them since I was 15. So it's music and me trainers that I know what year, and then I go, okay, that happened that year, this happened that year. Yeah, it's crazy how
I own tops and some walking boots, and I think that's it. I've never owned a few of mine. I've not owned a pair of trainers since I was at school, I don't think.
Well, you don't need them in Ibiza, do you?
No. Exactly, it's too warm.
Yeah, so we've done the football thing. Obviously, you don't watch too much of it anymore. The musical thing, your musical roots, where did they all start? What was playing in your house at an early age?
I don't recall there was ever music playing in the house.
Wow.
Ever. I remember music in the car. Mm-hmm. I recall my dad really being into ELO, Pink Floyd, maybe a bit later on, Phil Collins, other than probably pop music that you naturally absorb because the radio is always on in that era. The radio was always on at my nan's house or in the car. So that's probably. I mean, my first memory of hearing a record, I think, is ABBA, Dancing Queen, on the way to a holiday with my grandparents, probably in the 70s. I'm sure it's not the first record I ever heard, but it's, I think, the first one I seem to have a memory attached to. But yeah, Pink Floyd, ELO, big, especially ELO, actually, a big memory of that is my childhood. And bizarrely, I actually met all of them at my friend Sally's house. I think it was her birthday, and her dad was friends with them, and they all came, and they all just looked super cool in like black, like the traditional rockers, long hair. It was like pretty cool, I think. I mean, I was a kid at the time, but it was quite cool.
Sunglasses on inside the house.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when you know you're cool.
Yeah.
But I heard your sister was a big influence as well. Didn't she give you like your first like electronic album?
I think I bought a Nik Kershaw album on a tape. Well, in fact, maybe my mum bought it for me. I had a little tape player that was like this big, and I had a Nik Kershaw album, which I still have actually. It was called The Riddle, I think was the album. And I remember liking that. And I bought, I think, a Bon Jovi album. And I really like bands like Leopard. Sorry. Of course, we're on my phone and somebody called me on WhatsApp. So I really like Def Leppard for a period of time. And then I heard the House Sound of Chicago Volume 1, which was a compilation Pete Tong put together in, I think, 1986. That's when I really obsessed about music. You know, I think Mr. Fingers, Can You Feel It? And Music is the Key, Marshall Jefferson, and then I can't remember the names of all of them now, if they spring to mind. But yeah, that was the thing that really excited me. And so that was, again, in my bedroom, probably listening on a cassette tape on a MIDI hi-fi system, no awareness of a scene or DJ culture in any way. I'm 13, you know, so that was the introduction to first hearing it for me. A year later, we had our first holiday here, and I didn't get past the hotel disco, obviously. Probably didn't desire to. I was 14. And heard Sven Vath's Electric Salsa record by Off, which I loved. Again, it wasn't like anything I'd heard. It was very exotic. It was very foreign. The lyrics were foreign. You had those sort of Euro-y synths. Like, that was a sound that captured my attention. Another record called Jungle Fever, which is a bit of a Balearic classic. I heard that in the hotel disco as well. And also other records that, you know, you kind of had those records that reminded you of your holiday. I think things like Loose Ends, Hanging on a String, Joyce Sims, All in All, Fatback Band, I found love in. So it's kind of UK soul, early house was just what I was being exposed to on that holiday. So that was kind of like my introduction to sort of, you know, I hadn't become a record collector at this point, but that was kind of the earliest days of influences that I can recall.
Yeah, it's so crazy because how old are you, by the way?
I'm 50.
You're 50? Yeah, I'm 53. So you what you're saying is kind of what I've been through as well, because obviously, like, a lot of English people go to Ibiza. Like, we used to go every year. So, you know, and then all the discos were usually down in the basement quite a few times. I remember that. And then you just, you know, go through there and they'd be playing constantly. And then you just go through there and then off to the pool. So, yeah, it's kind of bringing, you know, memories of my childhood as well. Right. And what's really bizarre, too, is I used to listen to Def Leppard and Bon Jovi as well. So I had the glam rock side, and then I had, like, the soul boy side as well that I loved. I loved dub and, you know, grew up with Scratch Perry. I loved that side stuff. So, yeah, you're bringing back memories, just going, wow, that, you know, how weird is... We, you know, I don't know you, but living kind of the same childhood.
True.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, quite bizarre. So how did the DJ thing come in for you then? Obviously, you started liking the music. Yeah,
I think we went back to Ibiza on another family holiday in '89 when I was 15, not too far off being 16. And my sister took me, and my brother was a year old. She took us to Amnesia and Es Paradise and put LSD in our mouths. Yeah. And I heard Alfredo play at Amnesia, play French Kiss, records like Korea, Baby Let Me Love You, and more unusual stuff that I wasn't sure what it was, but kind of, you know, what I now know very well as like sort of Balearic Beat, sort of indie stuff that Alfredo played in a mixture of Depeche Mode, like sort of credible synth pop, New Order, Depeche Mode, that kind of thing. It was a lot of things mixed together, as obviously everybody knows now, but, from alternative rock stuff to new age. It depends. Obviously Jose came a little bit later, but so that was 89. And I guess this made me a record collector. So I would come home and I had a job as a glass collector. So I would go and buy, imports from shops like Don Christie's or Summit or Tempest in Birmingham. I could normally afford about 4 imports a week. And that was, so I became a record collector. I think I bought 2 belt drive turntables because I couldn't afford direct drive ones. And obviously that was fun trying to mix on those. And then I guess what made me, and then obviously all the illegal raves in Birmingham I was going to with my sister. And I was young. I was like 16, 17. And going to a club called the Hummingbird in Birmingham that was really influential if you were from Birmingham. Local DJs like Lee Fisher, brilliant, great DJs. And then, but again, I still never thought I could do that. I didn't even aspire to that. I just wasn't, I guess I thought I was a kid and I was just there having an amazing time. And then eventually discovering Sasha at Shelley's, that was the change, because that was a DJ that was just better than anyone. No one was close to him. I was just like, wow. And then that's sort of, you want to buy every record that you heard him play. And it made me find a love for mixing records, like really obsessively, like hours a day. And then I think my mom helped me buy my direct drive, like my 1210s, which actually are still those ones there. Same pair. From 19. Yeah, totally. The lights still work. Bizarre. So yeah, Ibiza was the catalyst of the music, I guess, as first discovering a nightclub and thinking, wow, what is this? This is, I want to do this, whatever, I wanted to be around that. And then hearing Sasha was like, I remember I went to school with Steve Lawler. I remember we'd maybe after we'd been to a rave, we'd always, Sasha was very, very popular in Solihull, like by far the most popular. And we would always, someone would get a tape from Shelley's. And I just used to listen and think, when other people mix, the mix is a way to get to the next record. When Sasha mixes a record, there was this, I didn't know how to describe, I mean, I could describe it very easily now, but I didn't know that then. Obviously, it was in key, but he had a feel for it that I didn't ever hear anyone else had. I mean, obviously, Digweed has that similar kind of feel, but just it's like he understood something that the dance floor really connected with. So, yeah, it was just magical. And I was like, wow. It was the mixing that blew my mind. It was how maybe a record like Black Riot, Just Make That Move, sounded over The Final Word, Dance to the Music, or maybe later it'd be things like how Whitney Houston would sound over Left Field or Inner City over Blade Runner. You'd just be like, nobody does things that sound that good. And that was it. That was why I became a DJ, because of hearing Sasha and him really inspiring me, thinking I could do that. Again, I didn't think I could be, of course, I never thought I could. I wasn't hugely ambitious, bizarrely, as a DJ. I just loved doing it. And I just thought, I don't ever want a real job. So.
Well, I think, back then and today, you can make a mix and put it out and it's on the internet. So everybody knows the tracks. Back then, you really had to search for them. And usually you wouldn't get 90% of Sasha's set.
My sister sent me a link to a record about 3 days ago, and I was like, oh my God, it's like track 2, side B. And, I could remember the number of the tape and everything. And it's like, wow. And I went out and bought it. I'm still, nothing has changed with my obsession for discovering music. Every day I'm buying music, that I love. I'm having my record collection shipped here on Friday. Finally. So, I'm exactly the same still.
Well, working, you worked at Global Grooves, so obviously that helped your vinyl collection as well. I'm sure, you get the latest imports or promos and everything. Mm. For DJing, and Sasha and Digweed to me are the highest on the pedestal for me. I love my early prog house. I just love how they work together. But Sasha for me over John.
Yeah, me too.
Because he has the ear for most incredible records that maybe you and I could play, and it wouldn't sound the same as what he would play.
Yeah.
I've done the same. We've all been those chain spotters, and I've bought the track that he's played. I've put it on, and I'm going, I'm not hearing what Sasha was playing. This is the same record, and I'm not hearing what came out of that sound system he was playing on. So what am I doing wrong?
A lot of records I bought, and there were some records that took me 25 years to get. Records sounded very different when you'd heard them on a tape in your car a lot, because sonically you were missing some of the elements would not be on. Like when you got the record, it would sound a bit different. I don't mean things were there that weren't there, but the mix was different, or like it felt different because of the way it was played through a mangled old tape. But yeah, like very, very special. I've not really had many DJs that have been have really inspired me. I mean, I've obviously heard everybody over the years, but it's only a handful of people. Like I think Alfredo, then Sasha, Ramplin, Weatherall, Laurent Garnier, Luciano much later on as well. But Jose was probably my biggest influence in the end from Cafe Del Mar. But I didn't discover him till about 91. Well, he started in 91 at Cafe Del Mar, which is when I bought a tape off him. It was the first of many, but that was my biggest influence musically. And that's what's most relevant to how I DJ now is kind of the combination of stuff I heard when I heard Jose.
Well, you've come away from the dance floor. Yeah, I mean, I know you play Bali nearly every year, but you're more, especially now that you're musical director. I mean, for me, I don't like to. I always say this. I don't try and be that granddad of the rave scene, because things have changed dramatically over the years. You see a lot of people in clubs now with their phones out instead of dancing. It's just all about being there. The DJs, kind of the same thing. You've got about 300 people in the DJ booth, which I don't understand at all. I was talking to Renee Pilgrim the other week, and we're sounding like two old farts, just going, why do you need all these people in the DJ booth?
Yeah. I think I know the origin of that. So I used to play in Italy a fair bit. And when I used to go to Italy, there would be a party in the booth. And that is where I first saw it. And it looked like if there was a party here, that energy would go out to the crowd. And then I guess the first person I saw do that in Ibiza was Luciano, who played a lot in Italy as well. And he made this, it was a cool party of his friends just hanging out, but really into it, who looked cool. And it set the stage. I mean, look, I obviously I live in Ibiza, and I mean, I essentially one day I was touring India it was 2000, it was Christmas, New Year, 2011 going into 2012. And on the 1st of January 2012, I flew home, and I was just going through my diary, and I'm like, you know what? I'm bored. I'm not learning anything new. I lost all desire to be a DJ. I think I'd been touring internationally for about 18 years at this point, and I just didn't feel interested anymore. And that was my moment, and I decided I was going to give up. It just didn't feel like this obsessively thing I'm into. Just the lifestyle wears you down. And within about 3 days, somebody asked me to manage them. And for nearly 15 years, I've been a manager now, which I love. Well, actually about 13 years. So it's given me a very different perspective. So, of course, I'm in all the clubs with my artists. And, yeah, there is a huge amount of cameras, but the culture tells people they need to record it and prove they were there by posting about it. And it's a shame because they don't get to sort of transcend the moment and be lost in music. That's gone for a lot of people. They probably don't even know what that feels like. Although what's been amazing, Damien Lazarus banned phones in his room, and one of my artists, a guy called Made by Pete, was playing for him a few weeks ago, and it's a great room because no one's on their phone. And I know other people are doing that now in Ibiza because it's needed. I mean, who wants to go to a party and watch loads of people stand still? But I think the visuals are so amazing it's almost like they've gone to the GMX or something. Like they're at the cinema. They could put stools on the dance floor. And if you create such an amazing show, people want to watch it. You know, Manumission in the 90s, you know, if Mike and Claire were having sex on stage, everybody stood still and watched. I remember very well. And it's like the new version of that. Mm-hmm. So in a way, you know what? At the end of the day, each to their own. And if you want to discover a nightclub with a low ceiling and a strobe in the corner, they still exist. You know, it's just, there's something for everybody. It's also amazing to go and see an incredible show with great visuals. It's not my thing, but clearly people enjoy it or enjoy videoing it. I don't know. I'm sure they do enjoy it, you know. And ultimately, what I would imagine it's the entry level way of finding the electronic scene now is a big show with Tale of Us or Eric Prydz or whoever. And they are fantastic shows. You know, they're visually stimulating. But then maybe a year later, you might be hearing a more underground DJ. Not that that makes it better, but, you know, just saying you might end up 15 years later at a party listening to Harvey at Pikes. Again, I'm not saying that's better. It's better for me, but I'm 50. It's designed for me. But, you know, each to their own. And it's ultimately, there's a lot more people in the scene than there ever was, and that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, I just can't, you know, just DJ-wise, though, I couldn't imagine looking out and all I'm seeing back is people on their phones. It just wouldn't get me, like, excited, because I'm like, I'm here to make you dance, but you're just videotaping me.
I would feel like I had failed.
Yeah.
If that way. See, I mean, I don't enjoy, I haven't played to a dance floor for years. And I did me and Dave Seaman did the 30th anniversary of Manumission at Pikes in May, and I loved it. And then Dave twisted my arm and asked me to do a party with him at Acacia, which is a club very close to my house in the north of Ibiza in San Carlos. So I played with Dave and Steve Parry, a local boy from you, in just 2 weeks ago. And I actually really enjoyed it. But generally, that's not, I love playing Sunset, or I like to be able to play somewhere where there's no restriction. You know, I enjoy playing at Pikes as well, where you can play, you know, from Brazilian jazz to Afrobeat, ambient to weird new age stuff to anything you want. And again, I don't play 20 minutes of this, and I play all over the place. I mean, it makes no sense, but I enjoy it. And I like to be able to play with total freedom musically. For me, once you've got people dancing, you're a bit stuck, because then you've got to keep them. And then that means you can't take chances, and you've got to keep the tempo relatively similar. And that bores me. I switch off, to be honest. I always did to a degree. So yeah, I you know, being a more alternative and eclectic has always been my thing since hearing Alfredo and Jose. You know, hearing Alfredo in the late 80s and you know, and other DJs in the early 90s in Ibiza, they would play those down-tempo records, those unusual records in the club. They weren't chill-out records back then. They were like those down-tempo, you know, records like Voice of Africa, Humba Humba. I always remember hearing that in Amnesia at the end of the night. That didn't clear the floor. It made everybody go crazy. It wasn't... I miss that level of eclecticism. I think it was, you know, if you go to a night that plays Afro House, you'll hear Afro House all night. If you go to a techno night, that's what you'll hear all night. And because I manage artists, it's very hard to market someone who isn't definable by what they do. You know, for example, I've managed a few South African artists. So the perception is they play Afro House, they make Afro House, they play Afro House, they're an Afro House DJ. They play at those events. That's largely how the scene works. There are these subgenres and they're quite locked in their lane. And of course, there's always people who defy that and have always done that. You know, Garnier's a genius at that, always has been. But yeah, generally it's quite set in its ways. So that bores me. And I don't like functional club music. It bores me generally. I mean, there are great records I do love, and I'm in clubs a lot, you know, maybe 12 times a month with my artists here during the summer anyway. And I hear great records everywhere. I love just, you know, there's a lot of, it's a lot of the event, you know, the whole scene's quite samey. You know, you get a great idea. Somebody has a great idea, then everybody makes derivatives of that idea, because a lot of people, you know, lack that confidence to do what resonates with them. Sometimes when you're trying to be successful, it's easy to look at what's working and go, I'll do something like that. But then you're really only a derivative of what existed before, and it doesn't really add any value to the culture or anything else. I mean, I'm sure some good records are made that way. I don't doubt that. But, you know, I just think a bit more individuality, it would be a good thing, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, too many people are kind of stuck in their way. I mean, that's why I think a lot of DJs DJ like Pikes, because it's to kind of an older crowd who will let the DJ do what they want and they'll go with it. While a lot of the mainstream clubs, high Ibiza, it's like you just said, it's the same.
It's a great, I mean, it's
fantastic sound, just...
It's run so well as well. Like the experience of how well that club's run is insane. I mean, Ibiza is very good at that. Asher's run well. Ushuaia, you know, these clubs are run beautifully. It's just, you know, they are aimed at the younger audience, you know, and they want the big show and the big DJ. And that, you know, I don't think it's wrong. I just think there is there's choice of everything here. And that is the wonderful thing. Ibiza's never lost that, actually. I don't necessarily think, Ibiza was better in 89. There's great things now, you know. So I'm kind of, I'm still optimistic about being able to hear great music here.
Well, for me too, I think the art of mixing longer has been lost as well. You know, a lot of DJs play 2-3 minutes of a track and it's in and out. I think that's one of the main reasons I really like Sasha as well. He will keep 2 records playing together for 10 minutes, you know, and it would sound like a third track.
Yeah, Luciano did that. He would always run like this loop under his whole set. I used to really study how he used to play it, just to have this foundation and then drop everything on top of it. And it was, incredible.
When did Cafe Mambo come into your life? Because obviously, you know, you've been there before, and you know it's got spectacular view. When you start, you know,
so we discovered Cafe Mambo in 1989. Before Jose played there, he hadn't started at that point. It was kind of the place you went. It was like a hangout, and then I discovered Jose in 91, and I was just amazing watching him play, hanging out afterwards and hearing those very beautiful deep house records like Paper Moon, 51 Days, or Nova Nova, DJ GG, all these incredible records I remember very, very clearly. It was magical to me, but the queue at the bar was huge. And I think Lawler literally said, there's this bar next door that's just opened. There's no one in there. We could easily get a drink there and then come back here. And because it was so slow to get a drink, we just all popped over to Mambo, and all the big DJs were in there. We were like, oh my God, look, you know, literally everybody was in there. So we started hanging out a little bit in there. And I think me and Steve would chat to Jason Bai, who was the resident, and we'd ask him the names of records. And then I think Steve blagged he blagged a night there in 95. And he did a few weeks, and then they invited him back the next year. And then Steve had to leave halfway through, and he called me, and I was randomly coming out the next day on a holiday, and I packed I don't know how many boxes. I packed a few boxes and came over and got this trial, which was bizarre because there was a load of people there who knew the owner, who were trying to get the job, and somehow Steve blagged it that he should give me the job. So I got a trial, and it just, you know, I was there 20 years. So and it just it's home to me, you know. It was a great place to play, you know. Every day of the week, Monday, Roger Sanchez will come and play with me as the guest. You know, I don't remember all of it off by heart, but Wednesday was Murillo, Thursday would be Deep Dish, maybe a Tuesday was maybe Renaissance, then Frankie Knuckles and Hector Romero and Satoshi, all the Def Mix guys would come on a Saturday. Then it was Judgment Sundays with Jules with his trumpet on a Sunday. You know, so you got to meet all your kind of heroes, really. And I was 21 around this age, so it was amazing. Pete Tong would come and do, you know, the Essential Mix live from there, you know, and ending up being involved in those things over the years, you'd be like, wow, you know, it was a great place and a great time to play there, really, you know. So I loved it. I mean, I was actually at Mambo the other day with Javi. I don't go that often because I live in the north and I'm super busy, but I'm actually going this Friday as well, just to talk about our next La Torre album for next year. So, well, that leads well into that, I guess, doesn't it? But the Mambo company, the family that own it, acquired La Torre in 2015, and that was a favourite place of mine. I think I went there when Jose did an album launch in about 2001, and then it was a place I used to go. I know Roger Sanchez used to go, and we used to, maybe he even told me about it, I'm not sure. But again, that was the next level destination of, and it was very simple. It was kind of quite badly run. You'd order a drink, the sun would set, your drink hadn't even arrived, and you just leave. So, you know, when Javi bought it, he didn't change it much. He just made it a bit nicer, totally respected what was magical about it. And I just said, look, I've got to run that. That's like my place. I've got to do it. And he said, yeah, great. So I started to put the DJs, and then I was managing Jose Padilla actually in 2014, and I signed him to what was the best label in the world, in my opinion, which was International Feel, which was Mark Barrett's label. So I signed him to Mark, and we made this incredible album with Mark. Had this idea to fly. I think we had Tornado Wallace over from Australia, and Telephones from Norway, and Wolfmuller from Germany, and Mark, of course, and Paul Byrne from Test Pressing. And we made this beautiful album in the winter in Ibiza. And then that led to a friendship with Mark. And when I got the La Torre gig, I said, Mark's not really a DJ. And I asked him if he wanted to come and play, and he did. And then we just said, yeah, let's do a compilation. Let's do a really beautiful one. Let's do something on like a double. Mark was an expert at releasing vinyl with International Feel. He did very well with it. So we had an expert, you know, on the team. So we did our first album, and, you know, Harvey came and did the launch party for us. And then that led to just having really great guests. We were super lucky. I would essentially invite friends or people I ended up meeting, like Paul Daly just was hanging out in there one day, and I DJ'd with him years before when he was in Left Field with a Renaissance gig, and I just said hello to him, and he was so nice. We became mates, and he played every year for years. And people like Leo Mass, who I ended up meeting. I think I was running a party at Pike's actually with Phil Doherty, who went on to be Future Shock years later. And we booked Leo and we booked Paul. Yeah, it was really, I mean, Jose would play for us. It was really, really good. But yeah, so we were super lucky. And actually we got some sort of bigger mainstream DJs to do alternative sets. So Sasha did an ambient set, which was incredible. Maceo Plex was rubbish, actually. Didn't work. To be honest, I think he thought it was a DC-10. He was literally about to kick him off, and then he stopped, thank God. I mean, I don't know how on earth he got it so wrong, but he did. Great DJ, though, but just wasn't right for that. Radio Slave, Matt Edwards did a great set. Kolsch did a great one. So we've had a real mixture of just people we knew that thought they'll be able to do that really, really well. And then, man called Adam, like, everybody in the Balearic scene, from, Phil Meissen, everybody really. And then being able to choose some great residents, I thought, what's my dream team of residents? And we had Jose Alfredo, Pippi Johnson Trincher, Fat Phil Cooper, who worked at Global Grooves, which is how I knew Phil, Willie Graff, Buddha, a Danish DJ, phenomenal DJ, Mark Barrett, we've had lots of different people over the years, but just a beautiful thing. And we had this idea to not do the album every year. So we did one in 2016. We did one in 2017. Then we waited 2 years. Then we waited 3 years. And when did we do the last one? Let me think. I think the last one was it 2022? It was, wasn't it? Yeah. The year I came back, because I was living in England for 2 years. Coincidentally, when COVID was on, we were in Dartmoor. And I think we're going to do, it's the 10th anniversary of La Torre next year of the family acquiring it. So I've been sort of toying with an idea to do, like, I don't know, like a lot of people didn't get volume 1 and it goes for like about 100 quid on Discogs. So we didn't want to repress because it kills the magic a bit. But we actually, I kind of thought, hang on, let's do a really limited edition 5 double vinyl box set with them all in. But I just found out how much it's going to cost today, and it's like, oof. So I don't know. We're just toying with it. We're certainly going to do another album next year, the 5th one for the 10th anniversary. And if we can do something really special with a box set or something like that, we will, which would be great fun. So yeah, La Torre became a real beautiful thing where I got all my favorite DJs to play exactly what they want to play in the middle of nowhere with the best view ever. Yeah, fantastic.
Well, what do you think the big difference is, though? Because you put out 10 comps for Cafe Mambo. What's the big difference between like the compilations, you think?
I feel, well, I own the label with Mark Barrett and the owner, Javi, and I guess I'm old enough to know who I am, so it's a very clear reflection of that. I mean, obviously, me and Mark together, there's no compromising there. It's like I have a list, Mark has a list, and we have to approve each other's list. If we don't both agree, the record is binned, and there's no question or debate over it. We just keep it very simple. At Mambo, we switched labels so many times that we started with Paul Taylor and Neil Rushton at Network, which was great in '96. Then I remember we did a deal with Caroline Prothero, and that was Virgin in '97. Maybe we did a couple there. We worked with Sony, we'd worked with Universal, we'd worked with React, who did the original Cafe Del Mar albums. Yeah, lots of different people. So I don't know if it ever had a clear identity. I don't know if the Mambo comp knew what it was trying to be. Was it the cafe? Was it like Cafe Del Mar, or was it not? Was it different? Was it up tempo? I always had this conflict that, to me, Mambo was about the sunset, but actually the pre-parties and the major star DJs, Fatboy Slim can be 5,000 people there. What was Mambo? What did it really mean to the audience? Did it mean sunset, or did it mean the big DJ? Maybe it's both, but Cafe Del Mar was about the sunset. La Torre is about the sunset. Mambo is a great place that's everything. So, I think we did what felt right at the time without so much of a plan. And we did one I'm really proud of with Eddie Gordon, who was Pete Tonk's manager at the time in 2001. We did that. That was beautiful. And then we did one I loved in 2014 with Universal, which was the 20th anniversary, which is really, I'm really, really proud of that one. I pulled a lot of records. I didn't use it to try and look cool and pull records that were cooler than the ones I really played. That was Pavarotti and all the records I played a lot. So that feels like Mambo to me. But I guess La Torre is a bit more a maturer version of mine and Mark's tastes rather than 20-something Pete. So, it's, yeah.
Well, how do you find that, obviously with the sun going down and you've played so many sunsets, how do you keep finding those records, because I mean, I'm sure you can't remember how many sunsets you played. So
I know rough.
Oh wow, that's pretty good then.
About 3,500 in Ibiza, I think.
Wow, that's insane. And but how do you find? I mean, I'm sure there's some people that go to the sunset and hopefully Pete's going to play this song again. I would think you always want to play something different every single time.
No, no, I don't actually. I mean, the thing is, DJing's not my job anymore. It's my hobby, and I truly love it, but I don't have the time to really sort my records out properly, if I'm honest. I mean, I often just play vinyl, but and when my collection comes, I'll have a bigger selection. But I have a folder of sunset moments, I think I call it, which is tracks for the moment the sun sets. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't think anybody played Pavarotti at Mambo before I did. I just heard that once in a cafe and thought, wow, that at sunset. And that's how a lot of these things have happened. You might be watching an old movie like Out of Africa and, oh my God. Or very openly admit, I'm always influenced by other DJs. I'm so many of the records I've played a lot of my life at Mambo, I didn't even know Jose played them. But I think they were in the culture, and that is where they came from. I know that now, but all the great DJs I've heard over the years, and maybe I hear a great record that person plays. I mean, Leo Mas, my God, he's just that guy. His record collection's insane. But I heard a lot. When I managed Jose, he played me a lot of records. When I've had Leo many times, Paul Daly, all of them, I pick up 2 records from them, 1 from them. It's just a never-ending thing. I go through movie soundtracks. I enjoy looking for records, and I had a record shop in Birmingham as well called Vinyl Matters after I worked in Global Grooves. But I'm just obsessed. I look on blogs, I buy records. I'm on Bandcamp. I bought 30 records last night and vinyl as well. I'm just an enthusiast. I talk to friends about music and, have you heard that? Have you heard this? Or, I listen to, me and Mark started the Worldwide Ibiza show on Worldwide FM, Giles Peterson station. I think we filled in for Giles as part of the promo for the second comp, because he was a fan of the comps and he was a big fan of Mark. And we filled in and it went well. So we started doing a show. And then during lockdown, we ended up, before COVID even happened, we moved back to Ibiza for more alternative schooling for our daughter. And I'd heard of Nik O'Connor, actually, obviously, but I didn't know much about him, if I'm honest. I really didn't. I heard his radio show. It was the first time I'd really noticed him. I'd heard of the Unabombers, but it didn't mean anything to me. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I'd heard the name. And wow. I mean, wow. Like, Luke would be a new favourite DJ. I love his taste. His taste is like my taste. I love nearly everything he plays. Also, Antal from Rush Hour, I had the same with him. Like, wow. And I love Paul Byrne's show from Test Pressing. Paul seems to just love really weird, trippy electronica, which I'm massively into as well. So, I listen to a lot of people's shows. I often used to listen to Chris Coco's show quite a lot. But just talking to people about music, I discover records in my own collection, to be perfectly honest. I mean, so, it's one of those things that I'm just always looking for music. But I don't I repeatedly play the same stuff, to be honest. I've never planned a DJ set in fact, I planned one DJ set in my life. I did the first, what was it called? Ibiza Classics Pete Tong tour when was that, 2016? And because there were such big shows and I wasn't used to big shows because I wasn't a DJ professionally at that point, I did prepare those because it was like 20,000 people. I didn't want to get it wrong. But generally I go to a gig with a box of records I love. I don't use record box, I just shove records in a folder. I get them, panic and think, what the fuck am I going to play next? And normally every gig, I don't want anyone to talk to me. I'm trying to work out what the hell I'm playing next. I have no plan, no agenda. And generally every DJ set is a frantic panic. And when I'm looking at the sunset, the way it looks, the way the sky looks, puts me in a mood. And then something that resonates with that mood is something I reach for. If it's like, if it's like one of those textbook perfect sunsets, no clouds, there are certain records, like I mentioned, Out of Africa or Vangelis stuff, Morricone stuff. If the sky is moodier, I'll play moodier because I'll feel that way. So, but there was a strong level of repetition in Morricone, Vangelis. What's his name? Oh God, Thomas? What's his name? The composer. Why, that's bizarre. I've forgotten his name. Who did the soundtrack to? Can come back to me. Thomas Newman, of course. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Thomas Newman. I generally heavily go to those guys a lot because they just made so many great records that sound phenomenal. But I like a lot of, I play a lot of new music all the time as well. So it's always a mixture of stuff. But I do have definitely 20 or 30 real big favorites that I do kind of call on quite a lot because also, I'm definitely DJing for myself, very selfishly. I want people to enjoy it, but not at the cost of me not enjoying it because it's valuable to me. It's precious. So I want to play what I want to play. So I hope obviously people like it. But if there's a record I know they'll love that I also love, I'll often go, yeah. Because for years at Mambo, people would come up crying. You'd made their night. That's just a lovely thing, That happened to me when I heard Jose or any DJ that inspired me. And I love to give people a memorable time. And so playing great records just seems like part of that.
Well, it's refreshing to actually hear a DJ say they just play on the fly because most DJs will get their sets ready a week or two before, or while they're on the plane going to a gig, they've got the laptop out and they're creating basically a playlist.
I genuinely have no bleeding idea. And look, I know my favourite DJs don't do it that way. I know I can hear the prep, but I also know because there's obviously lots of them are friends now, and I know great DJs often put a lot of preparation like a band do, but I don't know why. Maybe I'm lazy. I hear a record once and I do remember it though. I remember the name of everything. So although actually volume is an issue, I could do with going through my folders and pulling out stuff I don't really play very often, but that's why vinyl's better because if there's 80 in a box, they have to all count. Yeah. Whereas if there's 25,000 on a stick, which mine probably is like that. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm frantically going folder to folder. I'll often set up my memory sticks across 4 decks. So I'm playing to, desperately searching for the records on the others, but yeah, makes it fun.
So I wanted to ask you, like, if, I know what the Balearic sound is, but like if somebody's listening that doesn't know what the Balearic sound is, what would you say to them?
Look, I think it's very clear in the sense that, a record can sound Balearic to me, although I don't even know what I think I mean by that. But it's the mixture of genres. It's a very glamorous way of saying open format. But, from talking to Jose over the years a lot about that exact question, I always remember I was at Jose's house when I was managing him, and he played me a Leo Sayer record called Easy to Love, which I'd never heard before. And he said, "Do you think this is Balearic?" And I said, "It is if you play it." I didn't see a better classification than that, but it's, I think Jose explained that, you couldn't always get all of the latest music here. I think Franco being in power, early days for him, very early days, was also certain things weren't allowed to be imported. So it was like the best of stuff they could find, as well as, I think a lot of progressive rock was played in the early period, Pink Floyd, Genesis. Then it was that, sort of Depeche Mode, New Order, but indie band like the Wooden Tops, Elkin and Nelson. But then obviously once that total mixture of music, and like with Jose playing classical music, new age music, flamenco music, like Afrobeat. Again, Jose's favorite album was, maybe like me, maybe he changed his opinion what his favorite album was every day, but it was The Girl from Ipanema, the João Gilberto and Stan Getz album, which actually gave me his copy, which I actually have here. So Latin jazz, which I really hadn't discovered that much, which is my favorite type of music, because I love Sinatra, and it's like a more exotic sounding Sinatra. It's got all the big strings and the melancholy. So it's Jose adapted to that environment, but then the people listening would make records that sounded like that, and that was chill out. And then people would make records that sounded like what Alfredo played, and then you had early records on Flying and all those kind of all the records we know, right? Oki obviously did a cover of Gibbereau, and he did Awesome Love, and people were making records that sounded like the overall cocktail of music, like with hip hop, playing the breaks from really, I guess, R&B records in a way, and then people made records that sounded like those breaks, and that was hip hop. So in a similar way, it was a bit like that. So to me, it's Afrobeat, pop, and pop like wasn't probably massively. Sade was big, of course, but Sade sounds particularly Balearic to me. Grace Jones does. Certain police records do, like, it just, some records you play them and you're like I remember Alfredo used to play Caps Insensible. I think They Think It's All Over. I don't know why that sounds Balearic, but it does. And I don't know why, say, certain records don't sound Balearic, but certain records just seem to fit the environment. I was jokingly sitting with a friend of mine who's a journalist, a guy called Mike Borman, and we were sitting on a bench in Richmond on the hill watching the sunset when I lived there. And we came up with this theory that it's music that sounded good under the stars. If it sounds like a warm summer night in Ibiza, which a lot of like all the early sort of Don Carlos, that sort of Dream House, that sounds like a hot summer's night to me. I don't know why, but it does. So anything that makes me feel that way feels Balearic to me. But it's just a total mixture, a jumble. That's what my sets sound like. If you go to Mixcloud, they are a total jumble. It might be 2 or 3 house records together, then a totally different shift of pace. But I'm just like, I want to hear that now. Great. And I just play like that. But, Jose's tapes were like that, and they were a massive influence. I used to buy a lot of his tapes, and when I managed him, I digitized all the tapes because he still had them. And, they were all over the place. And the mixing was terrible. And I remember recreating one of them perfectly, and it lost all the character. Like, they sounded better like that. I don't know why. They just did. I remember Norman Jay said to me at Mambo years ago when I got to know him, a great DJ, and who's also a big influence actually as well. But he said, amazing music adequately mixed is always better than adequate music amazingly mixed. And I was like, it's a good point. I mean, I do think you can have both, but, he's right. I often don't even mix records because I can't mix jazz into ambient techno it doesn't gel. So I just leave a little gap maybe, or just top and tail them. But, I just follow the mood rather than mixing them. But yeah, it's a mixture, basically. There is no real...
My last question for you, I always ask my DJ and musician guest, is who would you, on a ultimate festival, Friday, Saturday, Sunday headliners, alive or dead?
Oh God, Pink Floyd.
Would that be Friday night?
And not just Roger Waters' version of it. Like they would need to all be there. So Pink Floyd, I think. Sinatra would be good. Gilles Gilberto would also be pretty good. Were these DJs or just bands or artists?
It can be DJs or music. Yeah, band musicians, solo artists.
I'm trying to think who else. And Sade. That would be insane. That would be absolutely, that would be insane. So yeah, I think that would be pretty good. What's that? Sinatra, Gilles Gilberto, Sade, and Pink Floyd. That would be good.
Yeah,
I'd buy.
Yeah. I'm a massive Sade fan. I wish you would put out a new album, but I totally understand. You know,
it's funny. I've got a funny Sade story because there's all those great edits. So Tenaglia did that great edit of "I Never Thought," and there was been a few good ones over the years. But there was a good friend of mine who was someone I've known a long time now. But he was the trumpet player at Mambo, a guy called Gordon Matthewman. And I'd known Gordon for years. My first record I ever made was with Gordon. And someone told me, Gordon played trumpet on every Sade record and his brother is her co-writer on every song. And I was like, what? I remember asking, how cool is that I've known you years and you didn't tell me that? But yeah, Sade, I mean, timeless. I can't not play Sade every time I DJ, I think, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, she's just got so many, everything she puts out just sounds so classic. I mean, she's just a classy lady and it's unreal. Pearls is probably one of my favorites because it's that African vibe to it as well.
That's a sunset. The original. There was a great edit in '94 on red vinyl, which I play a lot still, and there was a very good edit by someone I can't remember their name about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer. Very good still, but the original of that is. Yeah, Paradise is probably my favorite. That's like my summer holiday record from 1988, which was, I think, in Mallorca, not Ibiza. But yeah, I know I love Sade. I mean, yeah, it's pop, it's catchy, but it doesn't sound like they're trying at all. It's cool. Yeah, it's amazing.
I saw, as you know, I'm over in America. I've been over there for 30 years now.
Where are you exactly?
Austin, Texas.
Because I lived in Los Angeles for a bit, in West Hollywood for a bit.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same weather as Spain. It might be even hotter here.
What?
It's just very humid. But I used to live in Savannah, Georgia, which is only about 4 hours away from Orlando. And Sasha came over to Orlando and played at Oz at the Beecham Theatre, and his last track was a remix of Pearls to end the night. And Jesus Christ, I wept. I literally remember because it was his first or second time coming over to America, and the prog scene in Orlando was, really good anyway. Dave Canalti and Kimball Collins.
That's right.
The English prog scene, but Sasha just dropped that. I just melted. I was just like, Jesus Christ, I want to be like this man. I want all his. He just is. I'm just a huge fan. My little girl is named Sasha. I love the name, but it's partly because of Sasha. I just love his music, and it's just. I used to play a lot. I have 4 kids, so it's tough. And plus, I don't want to be out at 2:00 in the morning anymore. I'm not a young fella. I
first, when I have to go out with my artists, I definitely have a disco nap first. Yeah. If I'm staying at 7, I need to do that. Yeah,
I do a Friday night here for my I DJ for them. I do an hour or 2, and I play whatever I feel like. They're not going to go, "Hey, Dad, you didn't beat match that one," which is great because I just turn around and have four of me girls just like dancing around or whatever they do, make shapes.
Yeah.
So it's great. But yeah, I mean, I can't thank you enough for, spending that time. Yeah. Again, you are, it's another guest off my bucket list. You, like I said in the beginning, it is an honor for me. I've had Dave Seaman on, Steve Parry already. And I like kind of what you said about your friend with Mark is if Dave and Steve are exactly the same, if they don't agree on a track, they won't sign it to Celador. And I love that, because Steve was even saying, he's like, I've loved these tracks we get sent. I let Dave listen to him and he's like, "Oh, that's shite." So they don't sign him. And I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's been brilliant. Thank you so much. I hope you can find, I don't know if it was recorded, but if you ever find it on a DAT or something, the Sasha Ambient set.
Oh, I've got it here. I can give it you. You can even. I think actually Sasha put it on his. I remember at the time he either put it on SoundCloud or Mixcloud. It's definitely there. I'll find it and send you a link to it. It's definitely there. It was very good. He played like an ambient version of Papua New Guinea and all sorts of stuff. It was really good.
Yeah, I would be honoured to have that.
Yeah.
I even remember just before we go too, I heard that Sasha and LTJ Buckham switched and LTJ played a house set and Sasha played a drum and bass set. That's what I've heard the rumours of, and this must have been 20 years ago. So I've been on the internet trying to track that down because I'm an LTJ Buckham fan as well. I love his drum and bass.
I am. I actually, it was quite funny. I licensed one of his tracks called Sun Rain to a Mambo album in, what year would that one have been? 2001. And I ended up playing with him at a festival a couple of years later. And I introduced myself and said, "Oh, I'm the guy that licensed your track." He said, "Oh, okay, I remember that. Cool." And then I came over about an hour later. I'm like, "Hang on a minute, what's that?" And he went, "Oh, yeah, that's where I got the bass line from." And he said, "Look, all my music's inspired by jazz funk." And he played a jazz funk set. It was incredible. Yeah. It was an ambient festival in Denmark.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I just admire bits and pieces from different artists. Again, I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and I will put a link to Hostel La Torre so you can go check out Pete's, where Pete is musical director. Hopefully, if you get to Ibiza, go one of his sunset sets. But until then, till next time, I appreciate it, and we'll see you later.
Thank you.